Hi there, Michael here. I recently came across a new plugin that I felt I needed to share on my channel. It is one of those rare cases that I think give a bit of a glimpse of where the use of artificial intelligence might genuinely add value to the creative process. I'm talking about Emorph, a new and completely free plugin that allows creators to develop their own tools with the help of generative AI. Emorph functions like an empty canvas that the user can turn into anything, from a new virtual instrument to a never-before-heard effects plugin, all without any coding experience. But let's not talk about it, let's open it up and see how it works in practice. So what I have here is a very simple Ableton session, and it contains just one track. Now this track is once again AI generated because of copyright reasons, so AI generated tracks cannot be copyrighted. That's why I like to use them in these videos. Doesn't really make any difference anyway, because we are just going to look at what we can actually do with that particular plugin. And what we're going to do is we're going to use Emorph in order to create a new plugin, something that has not existed before. And one thing that you might remember that I complained a lot about is the fact that very few binaural panning plugins have the ability to add or to adjust the interaural time difference. So what I thought we're going to do is we're going to see if Emorph can create a plugin that is a binaural panner that allows us to change the interaural time difference. And hopefully, you never know, because we are dealing with artificial intelligence, with generative artificial intelligence, so never quite sure what's happening. And hopefully we will create something that actually works. Let me just kind of briefly play the track so that I get some sense of what we have here. So let's just play that. So let's just move forward a little. Let's just kind of play that. It's actually a really nice track. I'm sometimes a little surprised what artificial intelligence can give you. And by the way, this is actually not created with a commercial model. This is actually created with a new model that you can simply download and run on your own computer. And if you guys are interested how to do that, let me know and I'm going to do a video. But my audience usually doesn't like artificial intelligence, so I usually don't do that. But once again, this is actually created with a local model on my computer. So that's the track that we have. So let's add an instance of Emorph and create a binaural panner. Now, Emorph comes in two versions, so let me just search for Emorph. And an effects version and an instrument version. So if you want, you can, for example, create your own synth. So you could create something that's completely new and something that hasn't been done before. So if you have any idea about something that is innovative, just kind of use Emorph to create that. And we can also create an effects plugin. And we obviously want to create an effects plugin because we said we would do a binaural panner. So let's add that in here. Now, the first thing that we're going to see here is, it's actually a very, very simple plugin. There are a couple of things that we can do. First of all, we can select the individual presets. Now, at the moment, I don't really have any presets because I have a completely new installation of Emorph here. And then we have here this lab button, and what that allows us to do, it allows us to go into the section of the plugin that we can use in order to create a completely new effect. So let's go into labs here. Now the first thing that you're going to see is a lot of code, and you will see, well, hell, Michael, I don't know how to program. What do I do with that? Well, the idea is that you have the code and then have the plugin compile it, but you're going to use a large language model in order to write the code. So that's really the main idea. So what we need to do for that is actually relatively straightforward. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm simply going to give it a different name. So let me just say binaural. I want to kind of create a binaural panner. Essentially for the parameters, you can, once you created the code, you can have it select how many parameters you want to have, and you can do that manually. In my particular case, I just want that automatically from the code. So the plugin should figure out what the code essentially asks it to use as parameters, and then essentially create the parameters automatically. And what we need to do now is we need to go into a large language model and first of all copy the prompt. Now the way this works is that this prompt gives the large language models all the information that it needs in order to understand how to actually write that code. So it's sort of really like the manual for the code that is needed for Emorph. And once I've actually copied that, I go into a large language model. Now, this large language model it doesn't have to be kind of Claude. It can be really anything. You can use a local model if you want to. Now, in my particular case, I'm using Claude Code because that is something that I think is actually, or Claude, that is something that actually works best. So let me just copy that, paste that instructions here. And then what we want to do is we want to actually have a binaural penna, binaural penna with the option to adjust the interoral time difference. Okay. And then let's simply say create. And what it will do now is it will go out and kind of figure out how the language actually works, the coding language, and then creates the code. And once I have that code, I go back into a morph and copy that code in there. So let's just wait until the Claude is completed. So if it's already completed, it gives me a self-audit. And let's see, how does the code look like? Well, here we have the code. And yeah, so let's just wait until it's completed. And I'm going to paste that into the interface of a morph. Now, for that, I first need to clean out the interface. So let me just select all and cut that out. So we're going to kind of remove that. And then we're going to go back to Claude and we're going to copy that here and we're going to paste that here. And then I simply tell the plugin to compile that. So let's just compile that. And what it will do is it will tell me if the compilation was successful. In this case, it was successful. Now, if it's not successful, what you can do is you can simply copy the log and then go back to Claude and ask it, hey, there was something wrong. Can you fix that, please? And it will generally do that. In all honesty, it never happened to me. It always compiled successfully. So this is actually something, so the instructions that Claude gets are really, really good. Now, if you're working with a local model, an open source model, you might run into more issues. But if you have any model that is really capable of coding, then that should not be a problem. And then we go back into the preset section. This is a very, very, very cute kind of typo here. It's not a present, it's a preset. And here we have it. We have the pen knob, we have an interoral time difference knob, and we have a width knob. And the one thing you need to understand is that the plugins that you're getting, they only have knobs. So there's no fancy interface, there's no slider, there's nothing like that. There are only knobs. My hope is that in the future they will actually add functionality that allows people to actually also kind of have a little bit more of a fancier interface. But this is the very first version. So all it really does is have these knobs. And for most of the cases, quite frankly, this is enough. So let's just play our audio and see what these things do. Now, kind of it is artificial intelligence, and first of all, or most importantly, we don't really know what these parameters actually do, right? So kind of it just says 0.5. So I'm not quite sure what 0.5 is. Is this in the middle or is this somewhere else? We will see. So let's just play audio. Well, actually 0.5 is to the, for whatever reason, is completely to the left. So it pans it around. So you need to kind of play around with it. Now what I could do is I could go back to Claude and tell it, well, kind of I'd like to actually have it in such a way that 0 is left and 1 is right. But kind of for the purpose of this video, I think that's fine. Let's just go that to 1. 1 seems to be in the middle. And I can change the interoral time difference, and that actually works. I can also change the width of left and right. And that's actually really cool. So let's maybe try one thing. I honestly have no idea if this is going to work, but since this is probably going to be a shorter video, so let's just kind of be a little bit crazy here. So let's say this is great, but I would like to have the pen knob in such a way that 0 is, oops, not miss, is left and 1 is right panned. Not really English, but kind of who cares. So let's just kind of see if it's trying to do something, thinking about configuring the audio pane knob, calibrating normalization from 0 left to 1 right. Let's see if this is actually successful. And once again, we have the kind of panner. So let's go back into Amorph again, into the lab section, and let's remove that one because it was successful, but it kind of not exactly in the way I wanted it. So let's go back to Auto from Code and let's see what Claude gave me. And let's copy that code and let's go back into Amorph and let's paste that code and let's compile that. Compilation is successful. We're going to the present, to the preset, and let's see. Okay, it did something. Let's see what it did. I'm not quite sure. So it actually did that, right? So that's now in the middle, and it works. So this is actually really, really cool. So even if you're not a coder and if you have no idea about coding, this is something that allows you to create new plugins. Now, unfortunately, the plugin itself is not multi-channel capable, so there are limited options in terms of immersive audio. But as you can see, a binaural panner with IDT or kind of interaural time difference knob is something that I always wanted, and now I have one because the plugin created it for me. So this is actually really cool. It is free. Download it, play around with it. Let me know what you think. So what's my final verdict? Well, I think this one is simple. I think this plugin presents a perfect example of where generative AI can really add value to the creative process. It allows creative professionals, most of which are non-technical, to develop their own tools that help them create their own artistic voice. Additionally, the way the plugin works does not require you to connect it to a commercial large language model. And because of that, you can work with a locally run open source model. So there are also very limited concerns in terms of energy or environmental impact, at least at the inference level. And best of all, it is completely free. So my recommendation is download the plugin and try it. If it is useful for you, let me know in the comments. I do a lot of work with AI tools these days, and I'm genuinely interested about what you guys think about such a plugin. Well, that's everything for today. If you have any questions or comments, drop them in the comment section below or join our free Discord server. The invite link is in the description. And don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on all things Dolby Atmos and immersive audio. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.